Hi, I'm Kate.
And I'm Mandy, and this is Love Sober,
the podcast for the sober and sober curious.
Hi there, and welcome back to Love Sober, the podcast for the sober and sober curious. And this is episode 156. I always start like, oh my god, I can't believe it. 156. Anyway, so Kate and I back today, and we thought we'd have a chat through kind of Christmas coming up and the Christmas and December cluster beep of trigger in a bag, as Kate said earlier. That is the month of December. Just sort of, tips and tools for getting through the festive period with sobriety intact and enjoying it.
Yeah.
So we always start with the check-in. So dare I ask?
Yeah. I'm just
How are you doing?
Absolutely fucking fabulous, dude. It feels like EastEnders around mine at the moment. It literally does. I feel like Dot Cotton with Nick Cotton.
Like out of all the characters.
Well, it's not pretty, put it that way. No, it's just been a challenging time, as you know. And that just had a really big family argument. Because we've got a teenager in the house and all the stuff, all the stuff that I've talked about before. So, and then it was like, right, okay, let's, obviously want to record a podcast, but I'm still looking like really puffy from crying. I'm really tired. So yeah, in full disclosure, bit fucking shit to this end. How are you?
Oh, we have to laugh, don't we?
Yeah.
I am all right. I am home. So I was in London last week. As you know, lots of family stuff going on. Up and down. Yeah, and then big kind of sad news midweek, losing a close friend of my husband's. Roller coaster, dude, this year, isn't it? But I'm home.
Death by 1,000 cuts. Not that I was like being really dramatic, but there is a bit of an element of it that does feel like that. And I've been like having a couple of chats with sort of friends, mum friends and teacher friends here. Actually, there's a teacher at my kid's school, and bless her, she's got COVID at the moment, and she has a child solo parenting, and I've basically had that, what a year kind of thing.
Yeah.
And everyone struggling a little bit. Like the sun is shining today, so it does feel like there's a lift. But I chatted to my neighbour yesterday as well, and he was like, man, I am struggling. The good thing is everyone seems to be like actually being able to say that instead of going, I'm fine. Everyone actually is like, not could really do with a hug and a cup of tea and a biscuit, or not a hug, and an elbow touch and a mask on again and a biscuit and a cup of tea.
Yeah, it is definitely like that. But I got my nails done and I got a new jumper, and they match, so that's giving me life.
Amazing. And I've got a similar nail colour, and I went to the shepherd's hut yesterday to do a little bit of women caving and got the fire lit and made cups of tea, and just had about an hour of just going, oh, okay, this is definitely what I need. Like, and we've been talking, haven't we, about the need to rest at the end of the year and the winter, and that kind of that real need to respect the ebb at the moment. And I think everyone's in that. Everyone's just like, I just need to like rest for a bit. Don't really want to do anything now.
It has been a challenging year.
That's like,
that's my final word on it.
Yes. So how are we going to do what are we going to do then to fortify our sober selves and stomp forward in our sparkly DMs or Diamante stilettos towards the end of the year, bossing it like sober frickin' queens. How are we going to do that?
Well, we were talking about, one of the things we were talking about was willpower. And so I think that's probably a good place to start. Certainly at the beginning of, people's journeys, they might be quite heavily reliant on willpower, and being willpower meaning I'm not going to do that thing. Basically, willpower is the pushing it away, isn't it? Like, I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to drink.
Gritting the teeth.
Gritting the teeth. And there is an element of that, but it's not sustainable. And we use willpower for many things, like all day, every day. It's like, I'm not going to eat all the cake, and I'm not going to shout at my husband for being a dick, and I'm not going to like tell that person on the road, that they are a very naughty word, or we use willpower all the time. I'm not going to cry right now because it's not appropriate. I'm not going to, like, we use it to hold things back, or to manage situations. And so when you're trying to do that all day, and then also trying to drink, that is very challenging.
And it's like you get worn out, it gets tired, doesn't it? You get like fatigued.
It's a muscle, so it's only got so limited kind of, it's like imagining stretching an elastic band. That's what you're doing all day, and so at some point it's either going to snap or it's going to bounce back. And so the difficulty is coming up to Christmas is all of a sudden there's so many more messages from marketing, so much more pressure from other people. So all the parties, all the things, it's incredibly difficult if you're just relying on willpower to manage this period and not drink. That's why so many people find it so difficult. So how do you not just rely on willpower? It's about building your emotional connection with your sobriety. So rather than it being, I'm not doing that thing, it is, what do I get from my sobriety? What do I gain? And so, we were talking about it before. What did you say earlier that was really nice? It was sobriety. Sobriety gives what alcohol promises. So it's that kind of technique of liminal thinking, which is essentially going through all the emotional messaging you have around alcohol being a positive in your life. For example, alcohol helps me relax. And then it's being a detective and finding out the facts about what alcohol actually does. It's challenging that belief, isn't it? So does it really help me relax? Well, actually, it's a stimulant, so no, it doesn't. It pushes your adrenal glands and your energy levels up. And then what happens? And then you have a crash afterwards, and all the things. And also, it makes me feel anxious the next day. That's not very relaxing. You go through the process of really challenging that thought.
And then seeing the whole curve, seeing the whole thing, not just like, oh, actually, alcohol does make me feel a bit more relaxed. It's like, oh yeah, but what then happens? And so if you get an even like slightly, well, it does give me this, okay, like play it forward a little bit longer, and then still have a look at it, because that will often tip the balance again.
So it's going through that process with all, and this is why we often call about it being the bindweed, because it's so sort of entangled around our lives. So it's, you've got to lift every stone, and that takes quite a long time. And that's why sometimes it can be like, shit, that triggered like knocked me off my feet, because I didn't know that I still had that kind of memory association with sitting by a fire, or like seeing that particular friend. It hadn't occurred to you, and then it, you know, it comes and bites you on the ass. So you go through that kind of process, challenging it. Does it really? What's the facts? What's the, you know, the real information? What does alcohol actually do? You know, how much of this is coming from fucking marketing? And then what do I want instead? You know? So when you're looking at that overarching thing, you could take like, alcohol gives me confidence. That's what I had, one of mine. Perhaps you can think of a couple in a minute. So alcohol gives me confidence, because I definitely use alcohol as a social lubricant. You know, I would get anxious before going to a party. So alcohol makes me confident. And then it was like breaking that down. It's like, does it really? Because, you know, normally by the end of the evening, I've done something embarrassing that, you know, screws my confidence over. Or is it real confidence because it's fake? And am I really creating authentic relationships with people? You know, what do I really want? What I really want is to have enough self-compassion and self-love that I feel confident in myself and don't have to rely upon something. So kind of going through that process, and it's like, well, yeah, so what do I want instead? It's like, I want to feel like really confident. And how am I going to get that? It's like, well, I'm going to get that by, yeah, doing myself a solid and not fucking myself over with alcohol. You know, I'm going to get that by being able to trust myself and not letting myself down. And also I'm going to get that from being with people that actually really like me.
And I find it helpful with this, you know, when you're getting the articles out and you're like examining them, to have in the front of your mind that alcohol is never the right answer. Like, and to flip it and to link it with, if you switch it just to another drug, if it was to a cigarette, or if it was to, you know, because of that bindery, because of those associations, we've got to just uncouple them, haven't we? Uncouple them from alcohol. So we have to snip the bindweed. And so it's like, okay, if I'm saying, just imagine if you say, okay, alcohol makes, mine would have been, alcohol kind of gave me that bit of energy for the end of the evening. So if I swap that and go, fags give me that bit of energy, I'd be like, yeah, but that's not all right. Why is it like all right with the alcohol? That's not, that sounds rank, you know. So because we have those associations so tied up in our romantic stories around it, to replace it can make you go, oh, actually, yeah, the rose tinted glasses have come off at that point. And then like you saying, what do I want instead? And what do I actually want? What do I need?
So in that instance, what would it have been then?
Not go, or just, well, I mean, you know, the process of building those kind of boundaries and feeling like I could say no to things, the JOMO. And also the, you know, what you said about the linking with the social thing. I mean, I'm sort of going off on a bit of a tangent now, but just how important having a social group to go, and that connectivity, right? Because this time of year, okay, alcohol helps me connect. Alcohol, you know, that then this is such a key thing for this time of year, of that time to be together, time to connect with each other, you know, and alcohol in alcohol centric ways.
Yeah, it's like every supermarket advert on TV is like
hammering that primal fear that without it we won't be able to connect. So it's that, okay, actually I can just have a chat with a good sober group, or have an authentic chat with a friend, you know, and again that sort of that connection with myself. Okay, I'm going to embrace the JOMO, you know, just look after myself tonight, just let myself rest and know that the world and the parties aren't going to all just stop just because I didn't go to that one thing, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting listening to that, because it's quite often, I think, it's quite often the opposite, isn't it? So it's like you're using alcohol to push yourself into something which isn't actually, it is the opposite of actually what you want.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, alcohol helps me connect when I don't really want to. You know, alcohol helps me, you know, keep going when I'm really knackered.
It masks any boundary, and
yeah,
actually, it masks real need.
yeah. Alcohol helps me be confident when actually I feel, you know, I don't want to be with these people, or they're not my people. I was talking to my husband about this the other day, you know, about socializing, because my social situation here in France is really bad at the moment. You know, I don't have any friends right now. Like, I don't have a social, I don't go out, I don't see anyone. And I used to, but then kind of I stopped drinking, and plus COVID, it just kind of, those relationships, this sort of, you know, what's the word, disintegrated, or I mean, maybe there's some can come back, but anyway, he was saying, it's just like, he was like, but I was like, I don't know whether I should contact them, like, shall I, and he was just like, well, you never felt truly comfortable with them anyway, did you? You know, you'd get kind of, he's like, surely it's got to be a golden rule that if you feel nervous around people, then they're just not your people. And it's like, all right, bloody wise froggy.
Yeah, it's like, when did he become like Dalai Lama or like
I
super
know, he
coach?
always has been.
Yeah.
But it's so true, right? It's just like,
Yeah,
oh, okay. So it's like, either you're going to keep forcing yourself into situations, or you just take a moment, and the rest comes into that, right? The winter of rest. It's like, this is the moment for kind of taking stock and not pushing through, and just, you know, retracting a little bit, which is what I'm doing, and just having a good think. You know, what's my word of the year going to be, is in my mind at, you know, at the moment. And it's that kind of intention, and that builds into this, your sober, you know, moving away from willpower and towards kind of sustainable sobriety, because it's around what your kind of long-term goals, and what you really, what do you want to look like, what do you want, how do you want to show up in your life, you know. And when you start connecting with that, you know, how I want to show up in my life is someone that I can trust, someone that I, you know, that doesn't like drink too much, or is unpredictable with alcohol, someone that, you know, is a good role model for my kids, someone that is like, you know, is still kind of, yeah, meeting her goals and still cool, whatever the fuck that means, but you know, in a way that isn't self-harming. You can connect with all those things, then that's where then you can go, right, sobriety is part of me, it's part of my identity. Yeah, it's that, as you said earlier, the decoupling of alcohol and the coupling of your sobriety.
Yeah.
And you have to do that,
because our identity very much got caught up with being a drinking identity. So it's like removing the hooks, it's taking those clothes pegs off that one, and then attaching them one by one. And as we do, it takes a while, one by one we move them over, and before that long, we're like, oh, okay, this is my new
me,
thing, this is my new identity.
yeah,
100%.
yeah. And it has to be like that. That's how it's sustainable, you know. Because it was the same with smoking. It was the same with smoking for me. It was like a 100% was a smoker was part of my identity. So I had to become a non-smoker. It had to be more important to me to be a non-smoker than it was to be a smoker.
Yes. Yeah. And do you know what I find really interesting is that how we experience this, right, because once you start looking at the neuroscience, you know that what's happening is the old neural pathways are dying off, and you're creating new neural pathways and connectivity and all the rest of it. How we actually experience it is those stories that we tell ourselves and our feelings around it. It's just so interesting. So just know that by when you're doing this, that rewiring is taking place, and your stories will change, and your identity will change, because it can't not. It will, because it's all in the brain and the nervous system. But what was I going to say? Oh, I was going to say a good thing, a Powerball to be able to do that at this time of year, I think goes back to something you said about, you know, the long term. It's pulling back. So we can go real rabbit in headlights, can't we, this time of year, and get very constricted. We get very narrow. We get very focused on the day or the lead up. So suddenly, instead of thinking about something that's, you know, a bit further down the line, we're all focused on this tiny amount of time. We get very narrow. So pulling right back, you know, that widening the aperture and casting the stone a bit further on. That's why it's lovely to have those sober groups. And we know that, you know, every other bug will be doing it in January. Like, how much of a boss are you going to feel like in January, where all the, what's it like, I love that proverb, if you sit by the river long enough, the bodies of your enemies will float past. Which is so aggressive, but it's so brilliant, isn't it? It's like, we're just going to keep going on our sober groove, right? And then every other fucker will be joining us in January.
Yeah.
I love it.
And it's also that kind of, there is a lot of, the kind of digging in, I guess, a little bit, and really kind of planning sort of what you want it to look like, you know, definitely up the treats, up the drinks cabinet, you know.
Yeah, the planning
it's all about making it really satisfying for you, you know. So it's like, right, what is it, who's going to cook? Like, I don't think it's alternated, actually, because I think really early on I identified that cooking was just, well, it was a car crash, because I was, you know, pissed by 10 o'clock on this, you know, Christmas morning. But yeah, I think one year I was just like, I don't want to, let's not. And so we just had, you know, kind of cut meats and salads and stuff like that. I was just like, I don't want to deal with the whole table thing. And then another year it was like super satisfying to be like, right, I'm going to boss, you know, the whole thing successfully. So it's all that sort of stuff. It's like, how can I make this, that kind of James Clear stuff, isn't it? It's like, how can I make this easy, satisfying,
visible?
Visible. I can never remember the last one.
Rewarding.
Yeah, you know. So it's like, right, like, I remember my first sober Christmas, because the first time that I logged on to a sober forum was on Christmas, on Boxing Day 26th, which I think is the height for many people. And
doesn't, sorry, I was going to say, doesn't that tell you so much? Sorry to interrupt. Because we have this like, oh, you know, what am I possibly going to do at Christmas? Why is that then the biggest time when people regret it on Boxing Day and hit the button for a sober forum? It's like, that tells us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What alcohol is promising and what it's delivering, two entirely different things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's you know, it's that thing of like the kind of moderation bullshit conversation that comes into people's minds. It's like, maybe I can moderate, maybe I'll just have one, you know, it's Christmas, maybe I'll just you know, and then I'll look again at it in January. But it's never going to be what you think. It's never going to be different. It's always going to be the same bullshit. And so the Christmas after, all my presents were around, you know, sobriety. So my husband bought me loads of lush kind of juices, and, you know, a glass teapot, I remember, and really lovely tea. And I can still, because I always do these sort of like photos, I can still see the photo of like the teapot with the Christmas tree in the background, and I just sat there feeling super proud of myself, you know. And that's so much a better image than the year before, where I was fucking couldn't understand why people weren't finishing their glasses, and so taking their glasses in the kitchen and finishing them for them, which is gross, you know.
And I love what you said about that, sort of using that, the cycle coming full circle the year as a point of reflection to monitor your progress and to congratulate yourself and notice the change. Yeah, that's a really lovely,
because it's that, right, like, you know, it's like, rather than, oh, I'll wait till the new year to sort it out, it's like, why not use this time to prep for the new year, for what you really want, you know, which is why you choose a word of the year, isn't it? It's just like, okay, I'm setting that intention now. Like, I mean, you know, for me, is a lot about around no longer inviting chaos, you know. It's like, I'm not fully, you know, progress, not perfection.
Leave chaos at the door.
Yeah, but it's like, there is work that I can do, you know. Not everything's in my control, but there definitely is work that I can do to turn away from chaotic states, be that planning, timekeeping, fucking saying no to stuff, you know. So that's an intention that I can work with through this month and get a bit excited about, that I actually might make some positive changes in my life, that I'll come out a bit better off than you know.
It's reframing, isn't it? It's just reframing what these days can mean, you know, and how to use them like a boss, I think. But I was going to say that thing, going back to the busy and turning away from drama, turning towards calm, which I love that idea. And the diary and the planner as the kind of weapon of choice at this time of year, because for me, for many, like a lot of my stuff would have been about nervous system regulation, being overwhelmed, going into that fight flight overload, where I'm just, it's all too much, sensory overload. And I was talking to someone about ways in which we can do this, and so what I've done this year is only have if it's in a week, have one night out, no more than that. Like one week I haven't got anything, just in case something pops up. One brunch, and I think that was it. And then all I did was book 2 like kid things. So I'm going ice skating, and going to, the night before Christmas Eve, we're going to watch like a Cirque du Soleil, like a Cuban circus at Brighton Dome. And those are my bits, like I know, and I haven't got anything else in. It's like super like that's literally like a little restraining order on saying yes to anything. Because then that allows for a little bit of spontaneity if I do want it. But previously I would have booked, it's like, right, go large, like I'm booking everything in. I've got an office party, we're going to do this, we're going to do the mum's night, we're going to do that, we're going to see that. And it's like, and even we spoke, didn't we, about maybe meeting up in Paris. And I said to you, but that's my only free weekend. And you were like, amazing boundaries, dude. You know, like, I was like, oh yeah, there is a bit of progress. So yeah, diary and planning is weapon, and taking a third off the list, like those really practical, how can I not go into overwhelm?
And it's, you know, I mean, I'm not seeing any family this year.
Good work, dude.
Thanks. Not my husband's and not mine. And that doesn't mean I don't love them. That doesn't mean that, like, you know, I'm a horrible person. It just means that it doesn't work for me and I need a year off. And you know, we've got Rose and her husband and their little baby coming, which is really exciting. But yeah, and so it's like, it's your Christmas too, you know. And yeah, just kind of make sure you're in the picture.
Yeah.
And I do think planning's so key, because it's like, yeah, okay, that's really brave or whatever. Some people just can't do that, and I get that some people just like, there's no way I can't see my, well, I would challenge the can't. If I was coaching a client, I would say, you sure? Are you really sure you can't? But I understand it's incredibly difficult for some people, but it is about protecting yourself around it. So it's like, right, so if I'm doing that day, I'm not doing anything for the rest of the week to recover.
It's allowing that, the whole curve, isn't it? It's allowing the, we talk about it in terms of that, the kind of stress curve. But I think that really that really is relevant to any kind of social thing. You have to allow the prep time, because we usually just go, right, I'm just going to do this, and we don't allow the prep, then the actual event, and then the coming down the other side, where we need to just process and rest and finish that part of the process. We're like, on to the next thing, So it's, again, if we widen things out and see the whole of the process, the morning after, the night before, and really plan around what we might need for the whole of the process, then we stand a fighting chance, of not going into overwhelm or overbooking, or not giving ourselves recovery time.
Yeah, I think it's like, I think if I was seeing family, it would be like one, Christmas Eve or one day, like Christmas Eve or Christmas Day or whatever, and then the other family would be New Year.
Yeah.
Just like, you can't do like Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day.
No, it's a long time, and I almost feel, people might have their different preferences, like if you're like super extrovert and don't get
some people might like really like being with their family.
Yeah, they actually like their family.
I do like them really. Oh God, my people please.
No.
I'm gonna start rocking now.
No,
I love
I'm talking
you really.
to myself as well. I'm like, oh no, what have I done? But no, people get it. Like, we love them. It's a lot. It's a lot at Christmas, with all the expectations and the elongated amount of time. It's like, and we're out of practice, aren't we? As well.
There is that as well, to really consider this year.
Like 48 hours with people might be triggering. So how are we going to break that down and go, okay, my social window of tolerance is often like about 2 hours, so I'm going to go and have a dog walk. Like, I know that it's fine, I don't want you to come with me. No, I'll do it. I'll take that trip to the shop. Whatever that is, whatever that looks like, to just get you some respite and break it up into little chunks, so it's not just such a marathon. It's like having watering points, isn't it, on the way, or if you're doing
I like that. Yeah
topping up the cup, releasing the stress, and then coming back into it.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so those are some tips and tools. I'm wondering if there's anything else. Oh, we've got on the Love Sober site, our latest blog on there is actually around this, and we've got some ideas for packing your sensory toolkit, social toolkit, and mind toolkit, haven't we? In terms of all the things we might need to put in and sort of fortify us. So do head over to lovesober.com and just check out the blogs page, because that might be useful.
Yeah. So what's your reason to love sober and your tip of the day?
My reason to love sober is definitely that my bounce back time is much quicker, and my brain, like before, I think an afternoon like this afternoon, could have floored me, could have derailed me for ages, and then I'd maybe, I'd probably drunk on it later on. There'd probably be more arguments. So that just ability to then shake it out, recover, resource myself with what I need, so it was funny because we were talking about, yes, I really want to bring a bit of the sparkle. I need a bit of the sparkle. But actually, often it is about resilience for me at the moment. So it's that, such a gift. What about you?
Yeah, it's the self-awareness, you know, it's interesting. I was talking to my therapist yesterday or the day before yesterday about grief, and I was like, I don't have the capacity and resilience for grief. And she was just like, who does? Just like, yeah, I'm not entirely sure we're supposed to, are we? You know, be able. And I was like, oh, interesting. And just being able to kind of talk things through and have, I was just like running chaotically through life blind. That was life. So yes, it's stopping drinking has allowed me to be self-aware, and that's very healing. Yeah, so what's your tip of the day?
Tip of the day. What's my tip of the day? I think it would be to really seriously consider just kind of cancelling absolutely everything and just going to bed. No, that the energy, really taking really good taking stock of the energy levels, and you know, like playing it almost safe. Like don't be over ambitious. You don't need to push it. This may be not the year to push it. It's never the year to push it, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like take extra care of respecting that it's been quite a difficult year for I don't know a single person it hasn't been difficult for. So
no.
Yeah, it'll be that.
Yeah.
Rest, recover, restore, observe the wisdom of the seasons, go underground, rest.
Yeah, nice.
What about you?
Yeah, well, I tend to agree. I just think, you know, rest is step one. You know, it's just like you can't do anything when you're dysregulated, exhausted, hanging on, you know. So it's just like, yeah, telling ourselves.
Yeah, I know. We're both nodding sagely into the camera. No, yes, rest.
Yeah. Actually, I gave my daughter a mental health day today, because it's acknowledging it. I think, you know, it's like this year has been, as you said, incredibly impactful, you know, for us as a family. You know, we've moved house, like she started lycée, you know, she's doing her baccalaureate, like the difficulty, the amount of homework, all the things, you know, in her little world, that's a huge shift. Those two things, new bedroom, new light, new, all those little things, you know,
sensory changes.
yeah. She's exhausted. So I guess that's another thing, a reason to love sober is just, knowing enough to be able to give that to your kids and just go, do you know what, it doesn't really matter, like just take a day off, just read your book, get up to, you know, she's got loads of exams coming up, you know, get up to speed with that book you've got to read. I am a rapper because that rhymes. And rest
is best. Yeah, nice. And 100% there with you, bless her. And it's that sort of sensory stuff, and just it reminds me of when you said, you know, like, who's got CCTV or camera on your house? Like, you are allowed to respond like that and respond to their needs and just go, actually, it's fine to have a day off.
Yeah. My husband was like, did you tell her that she could have a day off? I was like, yes I did. He was like, oh. And then he did a meh French face. He didn't really, I just did that for comedic effect.
So I suppose we've come to the end, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've come to the end. So if you're immediately concerned about your drinking, reach out, you know, send up a flare, get in touch with your GP, or Sobristas has the anonymous Ask the Doctor service. And just get in touch with us. if you've got any questions or topics that you'd like us to cover. Because we love to hear from you, and stay safe, and we'll see you next week for more chat.